Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Enabling Customer Services Committee, Tuesday the 16th of September. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through the Council's website. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones, switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting, writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you're in the hall, you can do this on your iPhone or iPad. And you may raise your hand virtually or otherwise. I'll keep an eye out for that as well. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. Usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time or write leave in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting so that we can keep track on whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. We have several important reports to consider today, and I anticipate that we will deal with the business in our usual efficient manner. Go to agenda item 1, which is the Sedrent apologies and Chair's approval of remote participation. I've got Nick Evans. Mr. Evans, can you provide the Sedrent apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have 8 members present here in the hall. We have 10 attending virtually on Teams. We have 2 members not present at the start of the meeting. Actually, that's just changed to 1. Councillor Ferguson is not present at the start of the meeting. We have 1 apology from Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Nick. Now move on to agenda item 2, which is declarations of interest. I have a statement of connection to make on item 9, purely because it mentions Westrans in the report, and my role as chair is Westrans, but that won't stop me from taking part in the debate. So if any members have a declaration of interest or a statement of connection they wish to make. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, the same as you. I'm a board member in Westrans, so a statement of connection.
I think we could probably just accept that all members that sit in this committee, if they've got a statement with Westrans, we'll just accept that as everyone. Councillor Dorward.
Morning, Chair. Morning, members. Thank you. The statement of connection, I'm an IGB voting member, so it's specific to agenda items 7 and 8.
Yeah, again, I think we could just accept that. Any other members that sit in this committee, if they're on the IGB, that's a statement of connection. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. A statement of connection just in terms of my national role as Resources Causeless spokesperson. There's a number of items that are relating to revenue budgets, and it's just a statement of connection that I have that position. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other statement of connections or declarations, we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is the minute of the previous meeting of the 17th of June. I would like to add that it was remiss of me not to mention the previous chair and vice chair, Councillor Hislop and Councillor Marsh, and to thank them for their contributions. So if we can accept that as part of the minutes, can we note the minutes of the previous meeting? Yeah, agreed in the room. Thank you very much. Move on to item 4. This is the minutes of the meeting of the Ad Hoc Crichton Trust Subcommittee, and we're being asked to approve these minutes. Can we approve? Lodge in the room. Agreed. Thank you, members. With that, we now move on to agenda item 5, which is the outside bodies of an Enabling Customer Service Committee. The committee is presented with the 24-25 review of outside bodies as agreed by the Review of Standing Orders Subcommittee on the 14th of November 2024. Members are also asked to advise of any amendments to the current appointments following the meeting of full council on the 16th of June 2025. We've got Fraser Davis is here to assist if members have any questions. And I think probably best if we just go to the previous appointees. I would like to ask Councillor Caroline Wilson if she is okay to remain in that position in the first instance. Caroline Wilson.
Morning, Chair. Apologies, I'm at home with a poorly child today, but yeah, happy to stay on in that role. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would also like to ask Councillor Ivor Hislop, he's the substitute. Do you wish to remain on that position?
Similar in this deal, if anybody else wants it, I'm willing to let them have the opportunity, but if not, I'm willing to stay on.
Does anyone want Ivor's position? Doesn't look like it, Ivor, so congratulations. I haven't been advised of any amendments. Can we just take that as recommendations? Yes, nods in the room. Thank you very much, members. With that, we move to agenda item 6, which is the Council Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 25-26 for the period ending 30th of June. This report provides members with an overview of the Council's overall financial performance for the current financial year as at the end of June 2025, brackets Q1. The main financial pressures that are anticipated to impact the Council's position and the allocation of funding for non-pay inflation and other budgetary pressures. We have Gillian Ross and Paul Garrett are here to assist if members have any questions, both in the room. So I'll open it up to members. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report before us. My question is around national insurance contributions, and I note that in the paper it does reference the additional costs for national insurance to the IJB. We've also got in Appendix 2 national insurance increases of £2 million agreed allocation. I'm just wondering, the question was raised at E&I, it was raised, I believe, in the Education Committee, but you know, of what the increased funding requirement is within each of the directorates. But is there an overall figure of how much it's costing the council? Is that the £2 million, or is there more funding than that?
Thanks, Councillor Hagman. Gillian.
Thank you. So just to confirm, the total cost to the council for the national insurance increase was just over £6 million, as we had originally estimated during the year. As part of that, we received funding of £4,088,000 from the Scottish Government. So the remainder of the funding, the 1.9, is the funding that's reflected within the appendix.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I've got Councillor Sean Marshall, followed by Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of points, and forgive me if it's maybe within the report, but Appendix 2 in the table, it's got other commitments of 420,000. I just wondered if there was a breakdown of that somewhere, or if it could be pointed as to where in the report it relates to that. And it's really just about the we've already kind of committed 75% of the funding, which leaves us just with 572,000. Just want to know if it's forecast that will be enough for the rest of the financial year. And then just a general comment on Appendix 3 on page 49. And it's really, and I raised this at E&I committee, but also attended the Education Committee, and also, you know, today with Enabling Customer Services, just to congratulate the last two Enabling Customer Services and Education for actually being on target and having achieved a considerable amount of savings at this point in the year. But I did raise at E&I the concern that of the £1 million we wanted to save through budget savings, that the forecast for the end of the year is to is there a shortfall of half of that, of £500,000? I'm just wondering, where can we plug the gap with that? Because if we're not going to achieve that £500,000, where are the opportunities to actually get those savings from, or to actually, counter the savings that will not be made?
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Gillian.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. In relation to your first question on the 420, the detail is included within the appendix in terms of the narrative, but just to confirm, it includes the allowance that we made in February in relation to the public and bus transport increase of 205, which was addressed or accommodated within the overall procurement approach for there. It includes an allowance for 165 for insurance in terms of the increase that is due to come forward in October, and also a small allowance in relation to fuel. In terms of the savings aspects, we have been in discussions with the service in relation to the delivery of these savings, and looking to address alternative measures where we can possible to reduce the extent of that, and that's what we'll continue to do during the remainder of the financial year. In terms of the approach, in terms of funding that shortfall, as we've reflected within the paper in line with what we've carried out in previous years, that will be met from the Change Fund this year, and then any ongoing aspects will be taken into account or brought forward as part of the budget development process.
Thanks, Gillian. Councillor Dorward.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the report. Questions on Appendix 1, page 43. Let you turn to that first. This is social work services spending already predicting a variance of, sorry, I'm using my iPad here and it keeps going dark, 448k already at the end of quarter 1, which is quite concerning given the amount of money we've put in last year, which is circa £3 million additional funding. This is not really, it's more a statement or a comment on where we are with this, because whilst you can't answer this, you're reporting the financial side of the business. I noted that last year 1.112 million was invested to mitigate and address pressures, and only half of that was spent. And I think what we need to focus on, perhaps as a council, is this prevention, early intervention ethos that we have. Later on in the report, we're looking at recruiting 5 social workers specifically for complex care intervention. I understand that. But if we can't get our own house in order in terms of intervention, early intervention, prevention, I think we need to look at that as well. So it's not about you guys, you're reporting the finances, but I think there's been an underspend on the mitigations to try and prevent this more money going in. And it's almost like we have, we need to start controlling that a bit better. You're nodding your head, So I think there's a plea here to put the money into the early intervention prevention, as opposed to just putting more money in and predicting a variance that we really are not doing much about, it seems, at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dorward. Gillian? Or Paul?
Yep, in relation to the points Councillor Dorward made, that the overspend in social work, unfortunately, is a result of the continuing increase in the number of children's residential placements, and as you say, it is absolutely essential that we get that under control going forward. What I would say is that there is significant changes being introduced at the moment in terms of the approach to supporting children and reviewing those placements that are already established. As reflected in the paper, the number of children in external placements was up to 33 at the end of quarter 1. Indications are that has fallen back slightly since then. I think there's been 4 departures from placements and revised arrangements put in place. So we are starting to see some improvement there, but it's absolutely essential that we continue to see that trend going forward, and early intervention and identifying the most appropriate way to support children as a key element of that. So 100% in support of those comments.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of questions. One was on page 50 in the appendix. It's just relating to a couple of items of the forecast savings which were agreed, and one of those is relating to the Council's property estate and also to the co-locating services, which I think have been kind of almost standard budget sort of efforts for most years that we've been here. But clearly there's a bit of an issue in likely being able to achieve those. So I was just sort of wondering, is there something we need to take a closer look at in terms of how property services is operating around realistic expectations and delivery of these savings, because it doesn't look like they're going to be delivered, and I'm just wondering if we get a word from the director about what's been done to mitigate that. The other point is just on page 36, and it relates it's back to the social work side again, 4.14, and I think it's something that we were always seeking to do, which is about growing our own skills within the region. But it does mention that as part of how we're going to approach dealing with some of the difficulties in recruitment and retention. How's that doing, and do we have any sort of indication of is that working? I mean, and what difference is it making, and can we say anything today to demonstrate just how well that's working? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thompson. So, who's coming in first? Gillian?
Yes, in terms of the property issues, there is a concern regarding the shortfalls in delivery of savings. There's also a connection between that and the shortfall in capital receipts. In a later report, and there is meetings arranged with colleagues in ENI in relation to those issues to seek an approach that obviously looks to get back to actually achieving the level of savings and receipts we've seen previously, but do recognise that while there is still scope for further reductions in the council's property estate, it does get harder as you move on in that process. We need to recognise that, but we are having further discussions with ENI in relation to those targets and how they may be met going forward, and trying to ensure that plans are realistic going forward as well. In terms of the social work grow your own, I have to say I'm not that clear at this stage on how successful that is being. Obviously that's a matter more for social work, but happy to liaise with social work and get somebody to provide an answer in relation to that issue, if that would be helpful.
Councillor Thompson.
No, thanks for that, Chair, and for letting me back in. No, I'd welcome that, because I think probably everybody in the room likes the idea of growing our own, but I think we need to also accept, is it working, and if not, can we do anything about it, or should we be trying something else? So that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's... Oh, Councillor Hislop.
Thank you, Chair. It's back to page 43, the small print at the bottom between the two boxes. 6.65 million is the anticipated gap in the IJB resources. Is there any movement on that? Because I think they're reporting to us more regularly now. And if not, what are we doing to prepare to breach that gap? Are we looking to loan money, or would we be looking just to give them the gap in the resources going forward?
Thank you, Councillor Hislop. Paul?
Yep, so £6.65 million was the project outturn position as reported to the Social Work Committee based on the position at the end of Q1 of the current financial year, and obviously we'll be continuing to monitor that going forward. There's a number of savings measures that have been agreed that we are looking to see make further inroads into reducing that, and obviously the target is to address that in full by the end of the financial year. But I would recognise that there are significant risks associated with this issue. There's a number of pressures on the IGB, and whether they're fully successful in that is something that obviously we're fully committed to, but we'll have to work closely with them for the remainder of the year to see how successful that can be. In terms of how we would address any overspending by the IGB at the end of the year related to services delegated by the Council, as you've highlighted, the integration scheme requires a council to make a payment in relation to that. We can do that by two ways, either an additional payment, which is non-recoverable, or it's effectively a loan. But I think in terms of the approach we'll take, we'll consider it at the year end if necessary, but any assessment of whether or not it could be done by a loan would need to take into account whether or not it's realistic that loan would be repaid going forward. If you remember, in the financial year 2024-25, we had a similar situation. £1.8 million was the deficit that the council needed to make good. The advice at the time for myself and what was agreed by members was that it would be an additional payment because there was concerns about the ability of the IGB to repay that going forward. So we'll have that assessment again this year if necessary. But obviously the focus is on trying to support the IGB to reduce overspending between now and the end of the financial year.
Thank you, Paul. If there's no one else coming in, we'll go to recommendations. So members are asked to note 1, agree 2, and note 3, 4 and 5. Happy to do so? Nods in the room. Thank you, members. Move on to agenda item 7, which is the health and social care financial challenges and opportunities for the council support. Following our decision in June, elected members are provided with an overview of the extent of the service and the financial challenges currently facing the Dumfries and Galloway Integrated Joint Board, IGB, for health and social care, the associated implications for the council, and also the measures that the council may provide to support the IGB in addressing these challenges. We've got Paul Garrett is here to assist members with any questions, and I'll open it up to members. Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. I think what we are here to look at money, and I understand that, but I think what we need to remember as well is the associated pressures on the most vulnerable in society, given the cuts we have to make to service provision. But I totally understand we're here to focus on funding, and I really appreciate the work that's being done nationally and locally, which is is evidenced at page 81, 4.11 to 4.14, like COSLA, Local Government Directors of Finance, and SOLACE to attempt to mitigate against this, to ask Scottish Government to actually put more money in. We also, if you'll be aware, Chair, the Labour Group put forward a motion at Social Work Services Committee, which actually we are, as a council, asking the government to reverse the 12 million gap in funding. And we've also asked for lobbying, which is interesting because one of the papers coming up is a lobbying paper, a lobbying committee as well to address that. So I think we need to also remember the fact this is actually extremely serious, 1 for our finances, 2 for the IGB finances, but 3 and perhaps most importantly the most vulnerable people, citizens in Dumfries and Galloway. We can't forget that, and we really need to keep the pressure on. I know you're doing it, I know everybody's doing it in the council, we're doing it now as councillors as well, which is really good, but we can't not keep the pressure on to, just from a Dumfries and Galloway perspective, to get this 12 million reversed. I mean, there is a 500 million and rising gap in IGB funding across the whole of Scotland, and that's absolutely ridiculous where we are just now. So I just think we need to keep that pressure on, and we can't get away from the fact that it is about people ultimately. We are looking at money here, I get that, but it is actually about people. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there was a question in there, but appreciate your statement. Anyone else? Councillor Hislop.
Chair, I think the process we're going through is the correct one just now, but this has been a problem that's been going on for 2 or 3 years, where we've been using surpluses or reserves at the IGB. Why, at the time when they knew that they needed to use reserves, were they not identifying options then? Because it just seems to be this year that they've actually started to come to us, whereas 2 years ago they could have been starting the work on this review of care packages, which my understanding does achieve savings without a great deal of negative impact on the customers, if any negative impact at all. So why wasn't this started previously? And now we're being left, you know, at the final point where we're actually in trouble, or they're in trouble, and it should have been a managed process. Now it seems to be a reactive rather than proactive approach.
Thank you, Councillor Hislop. Paul?
Yeah, to be fair to colleagues, there has been savings plans in place for a number of years in relation to the IGB. Unfortunately, they've only been partly successful in delivering change in savings, but that impact has been offset and exceeded by increasing pressures and increasing costs that the partnership have incurred. So the pressures have got no greater over a period. I agree that reserve position provided a degree of safety net for a spell that's not there now, so it brings these issues much more to the fore at this stage. But, you know, I think it is important to recognise that they do have savings plans in place. I think the realisation now is that no savings plans actually do need to be delivered, that, you know, that there's not an alternative in relation to this. On the health side, there has been Scottish Government brokerage that's provided some support for overspending, and that may continue going forward, but there's no reserves left on the council's side. The council doesn't have no significant funding available to support this, so change will be required and savings will need to be delivered. So they have had the plans in place previously, they have had some success in delivering those, but I think the profile of that and the importance of delivering against savings plans is now much greater given the current position.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, just to come in and support Linda in what she said. She's said most of what we said at social work, and we are going to attack the most vulnerable in our society. That really is just totally unacceptable. And I just wonder, Chair, I made the point at social work, there was a long debate on this, in terms of the virtual circle, that if we reduce, as is being suggested in this paper, if we reduce the care packages to people, all that it'll end up is people will have to be admitted to hospital sooner than expected. They then will face the peril of delayed discharge because they can't get out of hospital because they don't have a proper care package. So it's this continual virtual circle. And I just wondered if anyone has really looked at this and considered the real effect in reducing the care packages and the extra cost there will be, the increased delayed discharges that could inevitably happen. And really, there will be no savings in this. And it's, again, as I say, just to support Linda, because we did move that we have a lobbying group to lobby government, whether that's Scottish or UK, just to mitigate against this funding gap of 12.5 million, because I can't see how you can take that out of social work and reduce care packages to people who desperately need this. We already have some or the figure had risen to 4,000 of unmet care needs, and we're going to only increase that if we even try to find that kind of savings or reduce care packages to affect that level of service. So I just wonder if anyone has looked or considered the effect reducing care packages will have on the NHS, increased admissions to hospital and further delayed discharges.
Thanks, Councillor Scobie. Has anyone looked at that, Paul?
Yes, I mean, this is very much part of the considerations at both a national and a local level in terms of the pressures on both the health system and the social care system at present, and all the measures that are being taken locally are being done in close consultation with colleagues in the IGB and the NHS. But obviously the issue is that, you know, the council, or sorry, services delegated by the council to IGB can only spend the resources that are available to support activities, and change is needed. I think there is an acceptance that there is a reform of care required, and that's the kind of things that are being looked at the minute. But no, there is an acceptance that at a national level there will be wider implications of some of the reductions that are currently already being made across Scotland, what will be required going forward. But it is very much being considered alongside colleagues in the NHS in relation to that wider impact.
Thanks, Paul. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a priority for the whole of Scotland, which is recognised not just in Preece and Galloway, but I think we have to recognise that, I think it was an earlier member was talking about keeping our own house in order, and I think Councillor Hislop touched on it just in terms of the run-up to this, in terms of, you know, our awareness of what the extent of the risk might be. Obviously we now know about it, but I think we've taken different approaches as a council than maybe what the IJB/NHS have done in terms of the use of reserves to deal with this. But however, here we are. And in the spirit of lobbying, I'm just conscious that straight off the bat, there's about at least 740k of national insurance, and I'm just wondering if there's something that we can focus our lobbying on, even by sector, if there's concessions that can be made for certain sectors of employment or delivery, whether it's health or social care, where there can be relaxed rules on national insurance contributions, for example, for the employer, which might alleviate some of that effectively burden of non-delivery. So there's a cost there that doesn't actually yield any outcome for any of the people here that we could continue to lobby for. I know we've taken a position on that before. So I'm just wondering, could I get a little bit of help with that in the spirit of trying anything to make this a more manageable situation? And maybe ask through the director if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll bring in the Executive Director, Lorna.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. You'll be aware, Councillor Dorwood referred to a decision taken at Social Work Committee to establish a lobbying approach to address funding for health and social care, and particularly social care, in terms of the current position locally and some of the national challenges around that. I would probably suggest if that's a specific area that members want to pursue, that it's wrapped up within that rather than in parallel with the current decision of Social Work Committee. My understanding, stand corrected to members who are members of Social Work Committee, that the intention was to set up a lobbying group to pursue that. So rather than having that running in parallel, we maybe refer it through to that group.
You want to come back in, Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it was, a caveat, but, in the spirit of lobbying. So I think I'm aware of that group being set up, but I think we should leave no stone unturned, as they say, just to make sure that every opportunity to make our challenge more achievable in terms of delivery and getting that right, that we do exhaust that and challenge the UK Government and National Insurance, as well as the Scottish Government, to find a way to deal with the national challenge as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would disagree. Nobody else wishing to come in, so we'll just go to recommendations. So members are asked to note 1, 2, 3 and 4. Happy to do so? Yep. Now move on to agenda item 8. This is the expedited procedure report, IGB Spend to Save proposal, review of complex care provisions. We are asked to note the decision of the Chief Executive following the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer and in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of this committee to allocate funding of 447k from the Council's Change Fund to support investment in a review of care provision across complex care services. We are advised that this decision was taken under the terms of Standing Orders 19.2, matter of ordinary business that requires to be dealt with expeditiously. That was because a decision was required before this scheduled meeting of the committee to support the urgent progression of work to address projected overspending against the budgets delegated by the Council to Dumfries and Galloway Integrated Joint Board, brackets IGB. So we've got Paul Garrett is here to assist members have any questions, so I'll open it up. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, it's good to see that we're actually taking a proactive approach and getting something in place. Do we know if the IGB has managed to secure the 5 staff yet, which will start this off? I noticed somebody mentioned earlier that we're struggling to actually get social workers nationally. So are we able to deliver this 2 million this year? Because we might not have the staff in place because it might take a wee while to train them up, or we're just pinching some staff for another council and they'll be looking to get some back later on, and we end up in the same position. So is this achievable? But I think this is what needed to be done. It's a pity it hadn't been done maybe 6 months earlier, but this is when it came. So is there a saving there to be had, or is it going to be a problem getting social workers?
Thanks, Councillor Hislop. Paul, is this achievable?
In terms of getting the social workers, my understanding is that this project is now fully up and running and fully resourced. I think there may have been a degree of moving people about as much as additional recruitment to ensure that that is the case, but it is now progressing based on that agreed resource level. In terms of is it achievable, I mean, I think we are seeing the benefits of that approach. There are opportunities to reduce care levels, cost levels appropriately that are now being progressed. So I think that it is bearing fruit at the moment. On the other side of things, there is still continued pressure, so it's making sure we get that net saving rather than a saving on one side and then continuing increases that fully offset and maybe exceed that. So it's trying to make sure that this works towards net savings rather than just in specific areas. So that's what we're working closely with colleagues on at the minute.
Thank you, Paul. Don't see anyone else. Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for that delay. No issues with the proposal. It's been well trailed and got general approval, which is good. Good to see that. But maybe issues with the use of Standing Order 19.2 and 19.1 again in terms of promoting business. The SNP administration came in on the 16th of June, and we've used this Standing Order 3 times since then. One for the buses, one for Scamp, and one for this. And Scamp and the buses, we've debated and discussed, so I won't go back into that. But I think it's actually quite unsettling, given that we've got a committee system that we are ever relying. This is unprecedented, the amount of times this has been used, especially under a new administration, which has only been in since June. And I think we need to look at how we do our business. We are a committee system, and there seems to be an over-reliance on this. I get this was trailed, so I've no issues with that. But we make decisions by committee. We are elected members, and we are the decision makers. That is how this council works. So having this 3 times since June is actually quite worrying. And I think we need to actually look at that from a governance perspective, and perhaps even look at it from a committee perspective. If we can't get folk into committees, we can use special full councils. We have used 3 of them again over the summer, unprecedented again in terms of how we do our business. But perhaps we need to look at that, because certainly for some members, this is quite an unsettling, worrying trend. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dorward. Yes, your comments are noted. I'm uncomfortable about using these sort of procedures as well, but the nature of being in recess didn't help either, so I don't know if anyone wants to come in and comment. Maybe Vlad, I don't know, or Paul initially.
Happy to just comment on this specific proposal rather than the wider issue. Just to say, and maybe apologise in terms of, I kind of brought this forward at very short notice to members through the budget panel. I think it was the week after this committee actually agreed to look at what measures could be taken to support the IGB, given the significant pressures that had been identified. So that was just before the recess. So it was recognised that there wasn't another meeting of this committee until today. And given the significant pressures on the IGB, we needed to help them move things forward as quickly as possible. So that was the kind of reason why this was brought forward at short notice and why expedited procedures were requested at that stage. So just to comment on this specific proposal, that's the background to that one.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I think each of the additional full councils in 19.2s has its own story, and it's certainly not the way that we like to do business, but often business comes at us urgently for whatever reason that might be, or by other elected members wanting to have a meeting. So I think we just have to accept that it's been a busy summer, that's for sure, but there's been a reason why that business has come forward, and it's certainly not the way we'd like to necessarily do business, but sometimes you have to deal with things urgently, and that's just the way it goes, I think. But thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, I've been here 26 years. We've had expedited procedures for 26 years. Every year something comes at us left field and we have to act quickly. And every colour of administration, from the Rainbow administration, I think was the first one we sat in, then it was the Silver administration, then we had Labour, Conservative, SNP, you name it. They've all had to use them because issues do come that need to be dealt with expeditiously. And it's a case of we as members have had those opportunities at Rosso to change standing orders. We haven't taken them. because we know that there are times when things have to be dealt with. And yes, I must admit, 3 in the last wee while might seem getting more of them, but I think that's just been the case, that we have had issues that have sort of been building up, and now they've came to a head and we've had to deal with them quickly. So yes, I think if you can bring it to committee, but that's why we elect a leader and a convener and chairs and that. They have, you know, we put them in there as members because we feel that they can take those decisions if required. Don't want to see more of them coming, but if they have to, then we need that ability to do that.
Thanks for your comments. Councillor Dorward, do you wish to come back in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I totally appreciate where Councillor Hislop's coming from. He's got much more experience in council than I do. I think it's a worrying trend. I think I totally accept the fact that these things happen occasionally, but 3 since June is unprecedented. I think even Councillor Hislop would agree with that one. And I think maybe we need to review standing orders in some way, and also, but maybe even not that. That might be a bit dramatic. Just review how we run our committees in recess. Maybe the recess is too long. Maybe that's a bit. Maybe I've put my foot in it there, and folk are raising their eyebrows. I know, but why not have a look at that? Because if we're not available from July till the end of August or whenever it is, I don't know. I don't know when the school holidays are. And then we're not available for 2 weeks in October, it's very hard to fit business in. I totally understand that. So for officers, it's really hard to get business done. I totally understand as well that everybody needs a holiday. So I'm not disputing that. But council business doesn't wait. So recess or no recess, things have to happen. And if there's a way of getting members to make decisions, I think that's where we should be looking at going forward, not doing, you know, yes, expedited, you know, using standing orders 90.1, 90.2, they're there for a reason, but it's getting a bit ridiculous now, given the fact that we do rely on a committee system. I think that's my point. So maybe we need to look at how we do our business and the timings for that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I suppose that also includes special full councils. Yeah, everybody's entitled to a holiday. I had 3 days off during recess at the Lake District. That's how busy I've been, so I can't speak for everyone else. But if there's nobody else coming in, we'll just... Oh, Ivor.
Chair, just to support Councillor Dorward, if she's making a motion that we go back to the old way of working, which was 2 weeks in July, 2 weeks in August, running together. We didn't have an October break. We didn't have much at Easter other than the bank holidays, and maybe I think it was a week at Christmas, because that was what we did. But if that's something that people want to see, I think it would be better. And I know Miss Brown, who does the committee diary, would appreciate it as well.
Thank you, Councillor Hislop. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Convener. Not to prolong this discussion, because we seem to be getting slightly distracted from the report in front of us. However, I would just put a plea that we actually are mindful of the barriers facing those in elected office, including those with children, young people. We want to be inclusive. We're also acutely aware, and this has been taken to the Business Bureau, where all political groups have had a chance to contribute. Certainly, I know I'm at pretty much every single one of those business bureaus, and we have had it highlighted to us the importance of also our staff, that they get a break, that they get a chance to catch up, because with our senior officers, they're not often able to take holidays as well. So, you know, while councillors may be quite happy not to have any holidays and to restrict the options for other elected members to stand for office, I think we have to be mindful of our staff and reach out to those as well. So just to offer a bit of balance in the debate here. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to recommendations. So members are asked to note 1 and 2. We're happy to do so. Thank you. Now move on to agenda item 9, which is the resource and requirements for the development of transport. Funding request report approved by Chief Financial Officer and Interim Assistant Director of Transport and Infrastructure. We are asked to consider a request made by the Economy and Infrastructure Committee that funding of up to 250,000 is allocated to support investment to enable the progression of actions to develop transport across the region, as agreed at full council meeting on the 26th of June and the 11th of August 2025. We've got Paul Garrett here and Karen Brownlee are here to assist members with any questions, so I'll open it up to the floor. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I think we've seen this report coming to us because it's been to E&I, I think, already, just to set it on its path. I think it's maybe just details around the scope. Obviously, that's maybe part of the thing that's going to affect the final cost, if you like. So presumably we're fairly clear about the scope of what we're actually going to be procuring in terms of service. And it's just if we get that, any detail on that from the officers. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Who's coming in, Karen or Paul? Paul?
Yep, the kind of basis of the scope of the work is related to the actions agreed through full council at 2 prior meetings. Paragraph 4.8 on pages 104 and 105 of the papers reflect the kind of key elements of that. But as reflected in the covering paper, in order to ensure that we address this work in the most effective manner possible and cost-effective manner possible, we're making sure there's a detailed scope to support the work before we procure these pieces of work going forward. So that's currently being worked on. It's not finalised yet, but it's being progressed at the minute.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thanks, Chair. And I was just, so can we get sight of the detailed scope once we know what it is? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm getting nods from the officers. Thank you. I've got Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, and Councillor Thompson has touched on that, and obviously this was discussed at the E&I meeting, and I'll follow on from the Labour Group's request at for a full council. So, yeah, I'd really like to actually see the scope of the work as well, and potential also look at the flexibility of that, because I think we're asking for 2 specialists that we know that the Swestrans and the council officers dealing with this, that I think they've been inundated with work, etc. So it's just wondering if within the terms of the scope there is flexibility on the £250,000, because at the moment it's being used for a specialist contractor for one piece of work, a short-term commission, and then 150,000 for someone to work along, a specialist individual to work along with the current team. So I think it's important, due to the importance of the work going forward. And I did say at E&I as well that, and again, I think Ivor mentioned about the council delaying on doing things. This is something, and actually stated this at the discussions on the buses, that a piece of work was done back in 2021, and I did get guarantees at the E&I that those pieces of work, which was the future opportunities for DGC buses and sustainable public transport model, those 2 papers, so they should form the basis of what we're going to do going forward. And really just to say as well, we did have an expert, and we probably let that person go too soon. So I'm just wondering, what kind of, I think within the terms of the scope, I'd like to see what characteristics and what experience and qualifications for the specialists to actually do this work. So I think it's a plea, like Councillor Thompson, that we do see this, the scope of work that's to be carried out, and all the alternatives going forward to develop, particularly the expansion of DGC buses.
Thank you. Karen?
Thanks very much, Chair. Through yourself, thank you, Councillor Marshall. So just to confirm to members, the request for this additional funding is due to the lack of capacity within the existing Swestrans and Transport team, and following full council in June, where the notice of motion was agreed, and also the special full council in recess. There was a significant number of actions for officers to take forward, and hence the reason that this request has come forward in order to move that forward in a timely way.
Just to absolutely confirm, happy to share the scope with members. Members will also be aware that we are due to bring a transport report back off the back of the actions that were agreed at both full councils. So we'll bring that to members at E&I committee in November, and I would suggest that a draft scope would be part of that. But we will need to consider commercial sensitivity in and around that. Just to also confirm, Councillor Marshall, as I confirmed to you at E&I committee, we will also track back to the report that was agreed by members in 2021, just to ensure that all actions are progressed and moved forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Chair, can I,
Yeah.
Chair, can I just quickly come back? Yeah, appreciate the fact, probably would like to see, if it's possible, the terms of the scope to agree, because I think it's important that members ensure that the terms of the scope covers everything that we would like to see going forward. So some sort of member input into that is, I feel, crucial. Also, one thing as well, and we've talked about lobbying as well, is this not an opportunity as well to look to see if we can get some funding from the Scottish Government to assist us on that if there's available funding?
Karen.
Thank you, Chair. As part of the full council report that was agreed by members in recess and also off the back of the notice of motion, it was confirmed that we would write to the Scottish Government and Transport Scotland to request additional funds. That piece of work is ongoing, but what we also confirmed at the Special Full Council during recess was until we know what the specific ask is, in terms of Transport Scotland to support West Strands, we can't give that level of detail, but that's certainly an action that officers are picking up. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Councillor Hislop.
Thank you, Chair. It's just with regard to the funding source. Is this the most appropriate source to get it from? Because in the past, the Change Fund has been there to sort of spend to save. We've used it for the ERVS scheme, etc. If we need to find funding in the future. So is this the best place to find it, or is this a case of this is the only bit we've got a wee bit left in the pocket?
Paul?
Probably more the latter, Councillor Hislop. I think paragraphs 4.7 to 4.11 of the paper kind of provide that discussion of where the funding can come from to support this project. I agree that there's not an obvious source for this one. It's not so much a pressure because it's something that has been agreed by members specifically. It's not a typical change fund proposal in as much as it's not attached to a saving, but the terms of the change fund, the criteria for use of the change fund do say that change projects as well as savings projects can be supported. So I think it's an appropriate use of that funding, and it is, to be fair, it is a recognition that there's not really any other obvious source that could come from.
Councillor Ferguson.
Okay, thanks very much, Chair. First, I apologise for being late at another appointment. Can we just be absolutely clear that any follow-ups in that will be going to the E&I committee, not this committee? Because at the moment in time we're talking about bringing them back, and unless it's clear, because I'm certain at the E&I committee we said that's what would happen at E&I, we would update that members and also report it back to that to E&I committee. So just to be absolutely clear, in terms of governance, that's what it's going to go to, rather than come back to this committee.
Thanks, Councillor Ferguson. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Yeah, just to confirm, any further updates would be brought back through E&I committee. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I suppose it's in a bid to be as accommodating as possible, but I think Councillor Marshall raises a good point in that if it does go back to E&I, that's good, but I mean, often we have a custom where we would share maybe detail with group leaders, for example, so that they can consult and maybe feedback maybe before it goes to E&I. I don't know what the right process would be, but I'd certainly welcome members having sight of this, because it's obviously an important decision that we need to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that something that we can accommodate?
Thank you, Chair. Through yourself, more than happy to speak with governance colleagues just to navigate through that, but I don't think that would be an issue. Thank you.
Okay, we've got that assurance. With that, move to recommendations. Members are asked to note 1 and agree 2. Happy to do so? Yep. Thank you, members. Move on to agenda item 10, which is the Enabling Customer Services Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 25-26 for the period ending in June, 30th of June 2025, quarter one. This report provides members with the overview of performance against budget for the period ending in the 30th of June 2025 for Enabling Customer Services, including the details of budget realignment review that has been undertaken with the service management team to ensure detailed budgets are realistic for the current financial year. We've got Stephen White here to assist if members have any questions. Got Councillor Stitt.
Thanks, Chair. It's the bottom of page 110 under Government Human Resources. See, we're struggling to recruit. Can I ask how many vacancies that are still waiting to be filled?
Thank you, Councillor Stitt. Stephen, are you online? Oh, he's here. Right, sorry. Yeah. Stephen. Vlad. Okay, I'll bring you in, Vlad.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've had what I think it's a national issue in terms of recruitment of professional staff or staff in general, but in particular those kind of the legal services function within that, and we've currently got a couple of vacancies in terms of the solicitors' roles. As members will be aware, we're trying to think outside the box with that, and we're working with other local authorities in a sort of kind of shared service type approach within that budget envelope. And also we've got 3 trainee solicitors that are currently being trained up with a view to obviously trying to keep them within the area and keep them within that kind of ultimately career progression route into those vacancies. So that's the plan we've currently got at the moment to address those, but we do have those vacancies.
Thank you, Vlad. Thanks, Councillor Stitt. Anyone else? Councillor Hagman and Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. It's really just to keep with consistency. I asked in terms of national insurance contribution for the whole council. I'm aware of the budgets, I'm sure, of the other directorates. Just to save me doing the maths, are you able to confirm for me that the funding allocation on page 110 on the table for the staff budgeting increases, what's the percentage of that 1.7, or what's the full amount for the 1.7 million for the additional national insurance contributions, just so I've got for fullest of information across all the directorates. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hagman. Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hagman. In regards to the split, the 1.7 million, 1.1 million relates to the pay award, the 4%, and 600,000 is in relation to the national insurance. So that's the splits there for you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ferguson.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'll be careful what I'm saying here, but at the last E&I committee there was an article on closed business, and one of the things that was mooted there was grow your own in the staff shortages. I know we do that in social work. I know we've done it in some of the professions elsewhere. So can we get some information about whether we're doing that around these areas that they're actually talking about here as being short? So, for example, and I'll be blunt, do we need a fully qualified lawyer, or do we need somebody like paralegal, for example, who could train up to be a fully qualified lawyer? That's the kind of the way the discussion went at the E&I committee, and I'm just want to hear what the officers have got to say about that.
Who wishes to come in? I'll bring in the Executive Director, Lorna.
Thanks, Councillor Ferguson, for that question. In relation to legal services, we do have paralegals, and we use them extensively, and as Vlad said, we've brought in trainee solicitors as well to grow our own. But across the directorate, we have trainee valuers in our assessors department. We've had a grow your own scheme there as well. And within the finance department, we've got a number of routes, and we've relied on that route really heavily to grow our own in terms of our accounting and finance staff as well. Successfully, I would say, in many regards. But it is something we're focused on, and in the council plan, our directorate is looking at how we might grow our own in other areas as well, and develop a model that might be helpful for other directorates in probably more frontline and entry-level roles as well, to see what we can do around that as well. So happy to give you a fuller update out with committee and share that around members of this committee, but just to give you reassurance of that.
Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's kind of what I thought it would be, but now the public can hear that that's actually happening, which is actually, I would suggest, a good move here. So thanks very much for the updates. It's much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Don't see anyone else wishing to come in, so we'll move to the recommendations, which is to note 1, 2 and 3. Are we happy to note those recommendations? Yep. Okay, members, we'll now move on to agenda item 11. This is the Capital Investment Strategy Monitoring 2025-26 Q1 report. This report updates committee on the agreed 10-year capital investment and provides an overview of the financial progress of the capital programme for the current financial year as at 30th of June 2025. We are also asked to agree allocation of funding from the Capital Fund of 100,000 for development of an outline business case for the replacement of Kirkcudbright Bridge. Karen Donaldson and Paul Garrett are here to assist. If members have any questions, I'll open it up to the floor. Nope, don't see anyone online. Nobody in the room. Okay, members, we'll just go to recommendations, which is to note 1, 2 and 3. Thank you very much. Now move on to agenda item 12, which is the annual Treasury Management Report by the Chief Financial Officer. The report presents an annual report on Treasury Management activities in comparison to the agreed strategy. In compliance with SIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management, we've got Karen Donaldson and Paul Garrett are here to assist members if they have any questions. So I'll open it up to the floor. Councillor Dorward.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, my phone's updating itself, so I can't use that to indicate. Thank you for a really comprehensive report. It's really interesting reading and quite difficult at times. So one of the things I've got is a question just about what you've written. It's page 142 in relation to a new accounting standard, IFRS 16. What is that, and how does it affect debt payment? Is that too difficult a question to answer? Sorry, I'm just curious.
Thanks, Councillor Dorward. Karen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Dorward. I'll try and explain it as simplistically as I can. So IFRS 16 is a new accounting standard that relates to assets that are leased. So basically any contracts the council has that gives them the right to use an asset. We've now got to, within the council accounts, record an asset as a right of use asset to highlight that the council's controlling the use of that asset, whether it be a bus, a building, whatever. And then a corresponding lease liability has got to be shown on the balance sheet. It's all to kind of try and, it was more in the private sector to allow comparability between accounts. Like I think an airline was a really good example, that one airline buys all their fleet, they've got huge debt, huge assets. The other airline was leasing, and you wouldn't be able to compare the two. So it was to allow that comparability. So it's now came in for sort of public sector. So in relation to the Treasury report, we've just got our other liabilities has got to now include that lease liability. So I think we've got added about 25 million in total between the obviously with the right of use assets, and we had to also revalue our PPP and DBFM liabilities to allow for the sort of variation in those contracts. So yeah, quite a complicated piece of work, but hopefully that explains it.
Thanks, Karen. I think we're all the wiser for that. Councillor Dorward, do you want to come back in?
I certainly am. I think it's a very complex landscape, and you've written a really good report, which makes it quite easy to understand, but that bit was like completely flummoxed me, so thank you for explaining it in layperson's terms. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hislop.
It's to do with sort of forecasts for the future, the sort of long-term borrowing. There's reference in here that the interest rates are coming down, and we're currently using the sort of short term just now because we feel that there's better terms coming. Is there any danger that that might change if, say, at a national level, government borrowing goes up and we drop down our rating, and therefore people say that, well, actually it's going to be more interest rates you have to pay because you're not just as stable as what we thought you were?
Thanks, Councillor Hislop. Who wants to take that, Paul?
I think with Treasury management there is always a risk, and it's difficult to predict all the events that will impact on future interest rates, and obviously rates are higher because of certain events in the recent past. However, the indications are that rates are likely to fall going forward, slowly and gradually, and that's how we've timed our shorter approach to long-term borrowing, so that when those current short-term loans come to maturity, we'll be able to replace them at lower levels. There is a risk that the interest rates might not be at that lower level, but all the main forecasters are still indicating that a year, 2 years and beyond, the longer term rates, the kind of 25, 30 years plus rates are expected to fall, and it is worth our while to take this approach, because if you think, say £50 million worth of borrowing in a year, a 1% movement in that equates to £500,000 per annum for the full 25, 30 years of that long-term debt. So it is quite important that we time this. There's risk associated with it, but we think that it's the best position to be in at the moment.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was just a question on the breakdown of the proportion of the principal debt or the outstanding debt that's PPP or PFI. I know we've looked at this in previous years around budgets and sort of extending repayment schemes, etc. But and also, what's the difference between PFI and PPP? I'm trying to. One's in the glossary, but do they both relate to private finance? Thank you.
Karen.
No, thank you, Councillor Thompson. So, yeah, so the PPP and PFI are very similar. PFI is sort of a private finance initiative, but it is basically public sector contracts sort of funded through the private sector partners. So they are very, very similar, just a slightly different contractual term. In relation to your question about the repayment of those, I'm not sure what page you're referring to, but obviously there were 25-year contracts that go to 2043, I want to say, off the top of my head. I'm not sure exactly what your question was in relation to that, if you want to come back
Councillor
in.
Thompson.
Yeah, thank you. No, so it was actually what proportion of the debt is PPP or PFI, if they're interchangeable?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, it's £153 million is, page 153 is, is the, so we've got 140 million pounds is the PPP contract. It's basically the difference between your gross external debt, which is like including your other long-term liabilities and excluding. So it's the difference between the 263 million and the 220 is all your PPP and DBFM contracts. Sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Anyone else? Don't see anyone wishing to come in. Go to the recommendations, which is members asked to note the contents of the Treasury Management Report. Happy to do so? Yep. Now move on to agenda item 13, which is the Lobbying Framework Report by Assistant Director of Governance and Human Resources. Members are presented with the new lobbying framework for consideration and agreement. Got Heather Carnahan and Joseph Coombe are here to assist members have any questions. So welcome. So I'll open it up to the floor. Any questions from members? Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. It's more a comment than a question. It's just to say it's really good to see a degree of objectivity, clarity, consistency and standardisation formalised in a report since 2015. It's long overdue, but it's really good to see it. So well done. It's a good report. And we have a success already. The 75-77 lobbying group is a great example of work that's being done that's in train, and it's actually moving forward quite well now. So just say thanks for the report. It's a good one.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else? Don't see anyone online. Okay, we'll just move to the recommendations. So the recommendations is to agree the Dumfries and Galloway lobbying framework as detailed in the appendix. Happy to do so. Yeah, nods in the room. Thank you very much. Now we move on to agenda item 14, which is the Dumfries and Galloway Council Communication Strategy 2025 to 2028. Report by Assistant Director of Governance and Human Resources. Members are presented with a new communication strategy for the consideration and agreement. This also includes the priority communications initiatives and campaigns for the next year. So we've got David Sawyer and Vlad Valiente are here to assist members have any questions. So I'll open it up to members. Councillor Dashboard, Vice Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Welcome the report. My question is around the procedure currently at the minute for when elected members want certain issues to be posted on our social media accounts. What's the procedure for that? If I remember correctly, we do have a sort of media protocol, but how does this feed into that with elected members and our wider communication strategy? Thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes, elected members are welcome to post whatever they want on their social media accounts, obviously, but we have a media protocol in place that maintains political neutrality for the communications of the Council.
Has that been helpful, Councillor Dashboard?
I suppose I meant more in terms of if there's like local events which are happening that elected members are familiar with in their wards and they want promoted. Is there an avenue that we can contact the council to have the council, raise awareness of issues and such? Thanks.
Absolutely. You would contact the communications unit about the particular event. In terms of publicising the event, usually it would depend if there was a council locus. So, for instance, if we'd funded the event, we would be promoting it like we did with the Stranraer Oyster Festival at the weekend.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. Another really good one. A question on Appendix 2, priority communication initiatives, campaigns for this year. Is there a priority list of the priorities? And if there isn't, why not? Because they just all seem to be given the same standing. So would we be looking to have a priority list in terms of what the council wants to put out as a priority, say, for example, buses or something? I'm just using that as an example. First thing that came into my head, unsurprisingly. And if there isn't, could we look at that in terms of consultation with elected members to see if they have any preferences as to priorities in terms of communication going forward? Thank you.
Thank you. Dave?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, it's certainly something we could look at. The process we went through here was we took cognizance of what was in the council plan and also the annual council delivery plan, and that's reflected in the items here. We also engaged with all the directors and services to find out what their priorities as they felt were. The other point to make is this is a list of about 30 campaigns and initiatives, but it is dynamic. as the situation changes. So, yeah, I'd be happy to speak about priorities, but I think to answer your question, this is not a prioritised list. It's not the first on the list is the most important, albeit the council budget consultation is extremely important over the next year.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, a couple of points. Just on that same point that Councillor Dorward raised, I think, yes, going forward, I mean, this is not an exhaustive list because there'll be things that drop off and things that actually come onto that list. But it would be helpful to kind of see, you know, because there will be priority ones at certain times of or during the year. So, and it's maybe not actually doing a separate report, but maybe just we do get the weekly comms bulletin, you know, and everything that's going on, etc. So it's maybe something what you could actually add in what the top 5 priority ones have been, you know, that week, etc., or something along those lines that can be developed. But would welcome something so that members can see what are the priority issues for the council, you know, on an ongoing basis, and that will change from week to week, month to month, etc. So if some consideration could be given towards that. The other thing I would like to just raise, and although I welcome it, I don't really see it in action and haven't seen it in action in the last couple of years, is on page 213 when it talks about press and media, proactive engagement with local, regional, national outlets. Now, yeah, I understand, you know, there's lots of press releases go out from the council. What I have been disappointed in recently, and I'm talking over like the last 2 years, is the amount of times, and I'll give an example of ITV Border, when they've looked for someone to speak to in front of a camera, that there's been no one available, or there's been a statement instead. I've always found, you know, over the years that either chief officers, chief executive, or the members, senior members of the administration at the time will be in front of camera. I think that gives a much more proactive message to the general public in Dumfries and Galloway than when you've got someone actually asking those questions rather than a statement, or as I have seen, actually the council were unavailable to comment. I don't think that's acceptable, especially when the issues that they're reporting on are causing quite a lot of concern. And I'll give the latest example of the buses situation, where we had a reporter standing outside the council buildings, and you know, basically she stated that there was no one willing to actually speak to them, but then she read out a statement. I personally don't think that is a good reflection on the council. I think we should be on the front foot. I think we should be prepared to actually get people in front of the camera to answer questions directly, because with the statement, you just put out a statement, there's no kind of comeback on that, etc. So people are interested in, you know, more than just a statement. So I would like to see some sort of, if you're talking about proactive engagement, then that should include putting people in front of the camera, either chief officers when relevant, or the members of the current ruling administration.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marshall. Dave?
So thanks, Councillor Marshall. In the weekly comms report, there is a section at the bottom that gives the priorities and what we've been working on, and what are the strategic priorities in terms of communications for the council. So that's just at the bottom of the report that we send out every week to elected members and CMT, but we will work to refresh that every week, obviously. And on the second point, absolutely, we want to be on the front foot as a council. We do have a media protocol in place, which is very clear that any broadcast interviews are put to elected members. So, and we follow that religiously. There is scope for senior officers in rare circumstances to do media interviews, but that might be, for instance, when between administrations or in the midst of a crisis such as flooding. So yes, in that particular instance, we did give a statement because we weren't able to, just due to diaries, put someone in up to speak from the council. But this is a media protocol that all elected members have voted on and was last amended about a year ago. If you wanted to change that, that would have to obviously come back to council, but that's the situation at the moment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hagman.
Thanks, Chair. And it's just on the back of Councillor Marshall's point. Obviously, we're straying into media protocol now. However, I'm acutely aware there's not necessarily any training for elected members in terms of media, and is that something that the Comms Unit has looked at? Thanks.
Thank you. Dave?
That is something that we have looked at in the past. It's not gone forward as yet, but we do have costs in for that, and if members wish to go forward with that, that would obviously, be up to elected members.
You content with that? Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. I don't see anyone else coming in, so we'll go to the recommend. Oh, who's that? Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's regarding communications and that. I must admit, as you know, I take a lot of film, and it's a lot of the good things that's happening in town at VG Day, VE Day, things like that as well. But I've made a point of asking the communication department, but really don't get any response. I just wonder why that is. I think that putting films like that out helps them at Galway, from the likes of the Norwegians coming here, Armistice Day, things like that, the opening of the new garden, Remembrance Garden, VE Day, VG Day. I mean, films all that, but they go into my systems that, and many people see them. I just wondered if the communications department would maybe review some of my films that might help the council and show what they're doing more in media. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, can we assist Councillor Slater to put his videos on the council website?
Hi, Councillor Slater. We'd be more than happy for you to send them in. We do, though, have a videographer as part of the comms unit. Part of his job is taking videos. So, but we're happy for you to send them in if you'd like.
Let's see. Well, all I can say to that, really, I haven't seen any great videos of VE Day and VJ Day and, Remembrance Sunday, things like that as well. So I'll have to ask what your videographer is actually doing. Thank you.
We'll just leave that comment where it is at the moment.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Well, I don't see anyone else wishing to come in, so we'll go to recommendations, which is to agree 1 and note 2. We're happy to do so. Yeah. Thank you, members. Now move on to agenda item 15, which is Procurement Annual Report for Financial Year 2024-25. This report provides committee with the opportunity to review and agree the Council's proposed procurement annual report for the financial year 24-25 as set out in the appendix. The Procurement Reform Scotland Act 2014 requires the Council to prepare and publish an annual procurement report. We've got Karen Scott is here to assist if members have any questions, so I'll open it up to the committee. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, just a quick one. Within page 225, 3.2.1, Council spends in the region of 285 million on goods, etc. But within the report, I think it is, we spend 326 million. Is that different kinds of contracts, or is some from a previous year overlapping?
Thank you. Karen?
Thanks. My understanding the 326 would include some grant payments as well. The 285 is once it's been cleared out to purely procurement influenceable spend. Councillor Hislop.
Thank you. Councillor Dashper, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Just in terms of the Meet the Buyer events, obviously they're a strong opportunity for engagement in terms of the service. What are we going to be doing to promote them and make sure we get a slightly better turnout maybe next time? Thanks.
Karen.
Thanks. So we are already engaging with those who registered to attend but who did not attend the events on the day. We've seen a continuous growth in the Dumfries event, and there is a growth, albeit relatively slow, at the event that we have been hosting in Newton Stewart and previously hosted in Stranraer earlier years. So we're proactively canvassing businesses, particularly in the west of the region, to make sure that we've got an agenda that ticks their boxes and helps bring them along to the event and get the support. And we're matching that up alongside a series of smaller events that are targeted at particular contracts throughout the year as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to page 226. It references the Fair Work criteria, and the percentage there is 97%, which is, you know, a really high number. But are we working towards 100% in terms of fair work and conditionality and awarding and how that sits within the procurement? I appreciate there's a couple of paragraphs on page 244, but are you able to expand just in terms of what our responsibilities are under fair work? Thank you.
Karen.
Thanks, and thanks for the question, Councillor Hagman. So we are aspiring to 100%, particularly in all regulated activity, whereby we will give consideration to fair work criterion and place an obligation within our contracts to encourage fair work practices throughout those contracts. The areas where we haven't, it actually reflects, I think it's one contract, I can check for that point of accuracy, but understand it to be one contract, which was due to the nature and urgency of having to introduce that contract. However, we continue through our supplier management to encourage and monitor fair work practices within that particular contract, but from a reporting purpose, we're unable to capture that one that influenced the percentage weighting and performance in this particular report.
Councillor Hagman.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I absolutely understand that there's one. I'm just interested in the language used there. So we encourage fair work. Is it not a mandatory part of our contracts, just in terms as a fair work organisation? So is there a mandatory part of that? I appreciate there will be exceptions and we need to allow for that, and I understand just the one, but is it just an encouragement or is it actually stipulated? Thank you.
Karen.
Thanks. So we have it as a weighted scored question that influences the ability in terms of the quality submissions of tenders as to how likely they are to win the work. So we do not mandate it on all contracts. However, we ask all of our suppliers what their current position and arrangements are, and so those that are accredited organisations receive maximum points. Those that have good, robust arrangements in place, again, receive a similar score, and those that have not got robust arrangements in place, then we have a proactive conversation. However, they are scored down in their submission, making it less likely for them to actually win the contract itself.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Marshall, Dorward and then Ferguson. So, Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks. And I don't know if Karen can answer this one straight away, but it's just in relation to page 277 in Annex C. I see the Anne Academy swimming pool rack works. It's stating that the total cost, which is a bit of a surprise to me, is it's got to be nearly 1.6 million. And sorry, but to refer to the next report as well, it kind of, there's an item in there saying that there's 384,000 contract value for Anne's Academy swimming pool rack works, and that's for a duration of 4 months. And I'm just wondering, is the funding released in phases for that contract, and is the 1.585 the total amount for an Academy swimming pool rack works?
Thanks, Councillor Marshall. Karen.
Thanks, and thanks for the question, Councillor Marshall. Trying to track the exact figures as you talked through. So my understanding in page 277, that was the budget that was made available, so that would also include potentially other rack works that were to be undertaken, and then in the subsequent report will actually be the final contract value that's been awarded. So this was the indicative budget that was provided at the start of the financial year that was being made available and held at that time.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks.
Can I
yeah, sure.
Can I quickly come back? So I think the 1.58 million for maybe the Anne Academy swimming pool plus the 4 schools, the rack works, because it seems to be, a large variation between the 1585 and then the contract award on page 308 of 384.
Karen?
Thanks. I would anticipate that is the position, Councillor Marshall. However, I'll check for a point of accuracy and come back and confirm to all members what was included within the original budget estimate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report, Karen. Again, really comprehensive. I've got a question on page 232 under 1.2 context, and it's the be very directive second bullet point on the right hand side. 232. Got it? Yep. So it's about the employability funded programme for a dedicated community benefits officer, which seems to have been a really good initiative. So my question is, these initiatives are quite embryonic at the moment and there's more work to do. How do we continue to improve here without what seems to be a very valuable resource if it's taken away after 12 months? Thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you. So yes, this has been a particularly helpful resource, obviously, as we have been focusing a lot of attention and effort into improving our community benefit journey and the process that we adopt to implement and monitor delivery of community benefits. So we entered into this with a clear expectation and understanding that this would be a 12-month fixed term resource. So we have actually used that resource to focus entirely on process improvements and introducing digital and automation into the actual process for monitoring and reporting, and has supported some of the knowledge transfer between the employability and procurement teams as well, so that will continue as a legacy beyond the existing post. But we have been very clear in terms of the tasks allocated with that temporary post that it had to be about providing longer term efficiency and automation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks very much, Chair. Good morning, Karen. Couple of questions, actually. One's on page 227. The digital connectivity supports thriving rural communities. Does that include work with the Health and Social Care Partnership? That's the first question. And the second question, do you want me to do one at a time? I've not got that many. I've only got a couple. Yeah.
Just ask your second question.
All right, and the second one is further down, education and learning. The framework will add additional, so the work is underway to implement a pupil equity funding flexible framework that will add additional suppliers to expand the offering to schools across the region. I personally appreciate that's maybe some we can get updated on outside the meeting. I think it's probably something that members would want to hear about, because my understanding was that pupil equity funding for each school was independent of other schools. So interesting to know exactly what that means there. And then the last bit is when you get to the plan, there's a significant part here, and well done to you, on the community benefits and the forum, and which I know is very successful. How much money do we is there per year on community benefits coming back out to our small or large voluntary organisations? That's it. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Ferguson. Karen.
Thanks. So in relation to the first question regarding the procurement and how we support support the digital connectivity across the region. Everything that we do would apply in the same way where we support IGB colleagues as well, where it's a council procured contract. So the particular reference in the report is obviously to the Digital Alarm Receiving Centre, which obviously supports around social care and how some of the care call alarm receipts come in and supports as part of the progression from the move from analogue to digital. And on the pupil equity funding flexible framework, this has been created to have one framework. So if there's a provider of a particular initiative that's supportive for an individual or a particular school, what we've found is that that can often then be rolled out across other schools, and that supplier has to go through a similar process to in effect become approved and be vetted to be fit for purpose for going into one of our schools or working with one of our pupils. So the one overarching framework does not direct how the PEF funding is spent. That discretion and autonomy still sits with each of the individual schools. However, this almost acts as a pre-vetting of the organisations, and again it provides an avenue for suppliers to come in and sell what they potentially could provide under PEF funding, and that's available for the schools to then tap into and view as they see fit to meet the needs of their individual schools and pupils. And in relation to the particular question about the particular value on the community benefits, assuming that this is where we're actually providing cash donations, we do capture the data, but I don't have it to hand, but I can certainly provide that to members after this meeting.
Thank you. Don't see anyone else coming in, so we'll go to the recommendations, and we are asked to review and agree 1 and agree 2. Happy to do so. Okay. Move on to agenda item 16. Procurement and Commissioning Performance Update of the financial year 2025-26, quarter 1. This is from the 1st of April 2025 to the 30th of June 2025. This report has been prepared for committee to consider the Council's overall procurement performance against a range of indicators and highlights key achievements and challenges during the first quarter of the year. Karen Scott is here to assist members have any questions, so I'll open it up to members. Councillor Dashper, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Looking at 4.1.1, so we've delivered 71 community benefits so far, which is more than the whole of last year. I'm just wondering, why do you think that is? Do you think there's greater awareness of the wish list, for example, and why are we able to deliver more support to people? Thanks.
Karen.
Okay, thanks. So there's probably for me 2 things that are happening. I think we have seen an improved delivery from our supply chain, and part of that has been brought about by the additional scrutiny that's also been placed. So on the previous report, I explained some of the work that's been undertaken in terms of the fixed term community benefit officer improvement work to place more scrutiny around monitoring and ensuring that delivery actually takes place, matching up the actual commitments to the asks that are on the wish list as well, and putting the suppliers in touch with the relevant community groups or schools or employability colleagues as well to make sure that those are actually then being delivered. And then alongside that, we've obviously got an improved reporting regime in place as well. So some of that may well be that we've had a higher level being delivered, but we've not been getting the reporting data back through from the suppliers. So I think in quarter 1, we're also benefiting from a bit of an increase in terms of responses back from suppliers around what they've actually now delivered, which is validated with the community groups themselves as well.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. It was just a question around page 301. It's got the Supplier Development Programme events. And obviously there's, I think, in the last report we talked about maybe the type of attendances we were getting at sort of related events, but they're very low. Number of attendees, sometimes 0 or 1 or 2, I think, is the maximum. So, I mean, is there a way that we could do that differently to almost give bespoke training to the individuals who do book? Because otherwise we're just, it just seems like there's maybe a way to optimise the use of resources for that.
Thank you. Karen?
Thanks, and thanks, Councillor Thompson. So we have the ability to influence and provide some local training through Supplier Development Programme as part of our membership within that particular programme. So that is something that where we have particular contract opportunities coming up so that the training's fresh and relevant prior to a potential forthcoming tender opportunity, we try and tailor that in and run those in addition to these. So these are the online training that, again, businesses have previously reported they find it helpful that they can pick up and join on an ad hoc basis. So they might start part of the course and then have to go and deal with customers or deal with something else, and then they can pick it back up. So the ability to have the online versions available to them has previously been reported by some businesses as being of value, but this is not delivered in isolation, and we do it alongside some of the local provision aligned to particular contract opportunities as well.
You want to come back in, Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, thank you. So I appreciate this is one of our outside bodies where we do appoint somebody to sit, and I'm just wondering if there's a way we can work that partnership to maybe get something that, it's just the way it reads obviously doesn't look great, so it's obviously natural to question the figures, but is there something that are we constantly inputting into that to maybe try and get a better outcome for our businesses? Thank you.
Karen?
Yeah, thanks, and I'm happy to review that further, and I think perhaps that could work alongside some of the wider community wealth building activities around how do we look at the gaps in local supply base, where we might want them to diversify, need support to be able to fill some of the contract gaps, and looking at that across some of the community planning partners as well. So there may be something that we can pick up through that activity, and I'm happy to do that and reflect any improvements or updates on that in future performance reports through this committee too.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Marshall and then Dorward. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And you know, just to commend the kind of work going on with actually developing the local suppliers, and I take great interest in the reports that come to this committee. And this is maybe just a little bit of a train spotter one for me. I've just noticed on page 310, it's got listed that Donald Peacock, the company Donald Peacock, is not a local supplier, but if I look on page 313 under the local supplier spends, in the kind of halfway down the page in 313, we've got the name Donald Peacock, which should suggest that they are a local supplier, and it also reflects back on the nearly 6.5 million on the road maintenance on 310. We've got two lists of lots, and it's only got one local supplier in there, but it looks as though if Donald Peacock is a local supplier, there's also the likes of Loose Bay, so should it not be more than one local supplier amongst all those companies that have been successful?
Thank you. Karen?
I need to go, thanks, and thanks for raising the point. I would need to go back and check the exact registered headquarters for Donald Peacock, because it looks like that's the consistent kind of trend throughout the inconsistencies in the report, but I'll do that and report back to members on the point of accuracy of any adjustment. Often what we find is businesses who have local presence that we would often assume are local businesses may, for example, have their registered headquarters as their accountancy firm, for example, which is then counted as out with. So quite often we might recognise them as local businesses, but in actual fact they're formally registered through Companies House to an address out with the region. So I think that's the position on Donald Peacock, but I'll double check and confirm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Marshall. Yeah, I think members will welcome any feedback on that. So, Councillor Dorward, and then Councillor Mail.
Thank you, Chair. Again, thanks for the report. Focusing on page 291, 4.13, 4.14, and also page 298, the Dumfries High School Social Value KPI summary. Totally understand the perspective here in terms of large contracts. Karen, I mean, our economy is made up of SMEs, not large businesses. So in terms of that, the social value is really important. And are there any lessons you've learned from how you've been interacting with the businesses in terms of Dumfries High School, the contractor, sorry, in terms of Dumfries High School, in terms of taking that forward for their large infrastructure projects in the future? Thank you.
Karen?
Thanks. So, yeah, we're learning as we go, I think, on the Dumfries High School, and making sure that we continually monitor the implementation and impact that the social value activity has. So obviously the reporting model is something new and gives us that additional scrutiny, and everyone in the project team are aware that this factors into the report that comes here. Similarly, this is also going to our Community Benefit Forum, and that's been further scrutinised, and we're pushing for additional opportunities and things to come through there. The project team directly involved in the delivery of Dumfries High School are finding that incredibly valuable, as are the wider members of the Community Benefit Forum. So we're already picking up on things that, for example, you might have someone sitting in Dumfries High School who wants a career in construction, and that's unlocking that quite quickly for them to be able to go out and get some work experience on site in the school that they're going to be sitting in the classroom in next year. So there's some really good learning, and we're capturing that through the Community Benefit Forum, which will then be deployed in other major infrastructure projects too.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mail.
Thanks, Chair. It's page 297, local suppliers by company size. There are more unknown size companies than there are those that are telling us. Should we not be finding out what size these companies are and getting some answers? I mean, how do we know they're just not one person or whatever? But I think we should be finding out exactly the size of the companies.
Thank you, Councillor Mail. Karen.
Thanks, and thanks again for raising this point, Councillor Mail. There's a number of factors at play in terms of why a company would be registered with an unknown size. The classifications just changed again in April as well, but the unknowns would also pick up on registered charities, for example, so particularly around our social care supply base, for example, there is a large number of registered charities. Similarly, partnerships would not be picked up, so the classification is calculated based on public data that's available through submitted accounts to Companies House, and then there's a kind of a layering over that calculates where they meet 2 out of the 3 criteria around turnover, number of employees, and their balance sheet. And again, they need to have done that consecutively for 2 financial years for them to fall into one of the classification codes as well. So where there's a change, again, that's starting to throw them out into the unknown size category. However, we are also continually working on that. Our team of analysts are working through that 319 figure to try and glean what information we can find manually as well out of publicly available information about the size of a company, to see if we can provide some classification, because I recall this has previously been raised because it does account for a large proportion of our supply base as well, but we will always have, due to just those other exemptions around how a business is classified, we'll always have some that we're not able to classify, but where there is data available, the team are manually trying to provide that classification to try and improve this reporting as well.
Thank you. Hope that's been helpful. Anyone else? Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks very much. Karen, if I can just refer to page 309, DGCP 413, and then on 311, DGCSC 23 and 26. These are all for social care accommodation. I'm a wee bit, the first one there, Eden Bank Hotel, because that's an HMO rather than a hotel, but because that applied for an HMO licence some time ago. Are these emergency social cares, when you're saying that there, have you any idea who they are, or do I need to go to social work and ask that question?
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Karen.
Thank you. My understanding is all these 3 contracts related to homeless emergency temporary accommodation to support a homeless service. So the 3 suppliers, Eden Bank, the OIO, which is the station hotel provision, and the Wheatley Homes, it's all relevant to homeless services, emergency temporary accommodation provision.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ferguson. Thanks, Karen. Anyone else? Don't see anyone else wishing to come in, so we'll go to the recommendations. So members are asked to note the content of the procurement and commissioning performance update on Q1. Happy to do so. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 17. This is the ICT Business Systems Asset Class Capital Programme 2025-26 Monitoring Report, Quarter 1. In line with the Council's Capital Financial Code and quarterly reporting schedule, this paper presents members with the net spend at the end of June 2025 for the ICT/Business Systems Asset Class Capital Programmes project. James Pocock is here to assist if members have any questions, so I'll open it up to the floor. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a simple one, really, in relation to, well, page 317 references that we are, as part of the Council Plan and Outcome, empowering communities and individuals by providing access to council services and resources. I'm conscious in terms of the appendix, it has on there the enabling digital infrastructure. The question is, where there's a community facility that's run by the council and there's requests for digital infrastructure like screens to now allow online meetings or for whatever the community is requiring, how are those requests managed and who do they come to? I'm aware that there's been at least one community group that has asked for support and they've not been able to get that. So where should they be directed and how is that captured in our ambition to support our communities, noting how large our rural area is and how reliant we are on these small hubs? Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hagman, and welcome, James. Can you assist?
Yes, so I'm aware of the request that's kind of come in. So we've got that captured within our call management system at the moment. So the request is if we identify anything spare for that particular facility, can we redeploy it? In regards to kind of new requests, that's something we would need to look at on a more kind of holistic kind of basis, as you say, across the region, just trying to understand what that kind of demand might look like and where that sits with our wider ambition for delivery of customer services and supporting the communities. I have actually received something yesterday from colleagues at Scottish Government regarding some external funding that communities might be able to tap into in their own right that I'll make available to both members and also to colleagues in the communities team as well, so that they can promote that as well, which might also kind of help.
Thank you. Councillor Hagman.
Yeah, that's really helpful, and I think any external funding that we can lever into the council is absolutely welcomed. I'm just conscious about how we can be proactive in this, because our council plan is about empowering communities. It's not about that reaction of, you know, communities coming to us. How are we proactively working with all our communities? Is that a piece of work that we need to look at? But appreciate the response on the specific item. Thanks.
James.
I'm happy to pick that up directly with members and also through the ward officers as well, who are probably closer to some of these communities than I am directly. So I'll pick up with colleagues in the ward team around about that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. It's just on paragraph 4.8 on the Windows 11 migration. So it's just to get a sense of how many devices aren't capable of being updated. It does say that 65% of them have, so it's just to get an idea of how many can't and then how many are still to do, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. James?
So from memory, the answer to can't was in the region of about 300, 350 devices that we've replaced or will be looking to replace. How many are outstanding? I don't have that number to hand, but my expectation is that when I'm here at the next committee, we'll be reporting that that's completed.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, so it's just units. So I think I was just going on percentages because that's what the thing says. So it's what does 350 equate to? Thank you.
You're going to test my mathematical skills. So if we're saying about 65%, we're probably in the region of about 200, I guess, that we've completed, which would leave, I guess, the balance of about 100 to 150 or thereabouts still to replace. Would that be right? I'll probably defer to my...
Councillor Thompson.
I was going to just go say, well, could you express that in the form of a percentage? But I mean, it's not necessary. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Don't see anyone online. Nobody else in the room? Okay, members, we'll just go to recommendations, which is to note 1 and 2. Happy to do so. Thanks, James. Item 18, any other business deemed urgent by the Chair for the need of a decision. I have not been notified of any other urgent business. Can I thank members and officers for their attendance and contributions today, and I will now bring the meeting to a close. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.